Same.
We shall see. Well, I am so excited, Veronica. I'm so pumped about this. You are just, I've been watching you from the sidelines. And of course, I've saw what you were going through over the past couple of years, but it wasn't really, didn't hit home until recently for me. But I'm excited to hear your story. I really know nothing about it. And so, I mean, a little bit that I've read, which is cool on your blog, I probably know more than most people, but I'm really excited that you're doing this with me. I appreciate you. I'm doing 31 days of joy, like leading up to my surgery. And this is what I'm doing today that's bringing me joy. So I appreciate that you said yes. So first tell everybody a little about you, like who are you, where are you from, like all the basic things.
Yeah, you bet. My name's Veronica. I've been married to my husband for over 22 years. We have a crew of kiddos. We have our youngest, Taylor, who is 13. We have our son, Cooper, who is 16. And then we kind of have a bonus daughter, and she's 25. So she joined our family just a few years ago and just as part of our crew. So yeah. So we live in Chico, California, which is in Northern California, and run my own business with Mary Kay, and then also serve in my church and kind of play full out in everything I do.
Yep. That's pretty typical, I think, of us Mary Kay sales directors, right? It's part of the job description, I think. Yeah, so I know we're connected today primarily about your diagnosis and about cancer and your victory story and all the things. So take us back to the moment of diagnosis and like all the things that you were feeling and like when and where and how old you were and all of that.
Yeah, you bet. Well, to talk about the diagnosis, I found 3 lumps. My third one was the one that was no bueno. And so when I found my first lump, I was, let me think, 30, it was in 2012. I can't do math. I was young.
And 8 years. So however old I was.
Yeah. 35. I figured it out. And so young. And found my lump and went through the motions and the follow-ups and just kind of had a funky sense within me. I'm like, something's off here, and had a gut instinct that I couldn't really shake. It wasn't, fear-based. It wasn't anything like that. It just was like kind of a knowing, and went through the biopsy and that process, and it came back benign, that it was nothing to worry about. And I kind of had a pause. I was like, I thought there was something off, but okay. And just continue to do my monthly breast self-exams. I've always passed out, I'll grab it here, out the shower cards. And the nice thing about those is it just kept it in front of me to remember to do those. And so then I found my second lump in, I think, 2015, and went through, called in, and as soon as you feel that, you're like pit in your stomach, and then you go in and have your mammogram, and they go, okay, well, we're going to do the ultrasound too. And then like, okay, and then we're going to do the biopsy also. At each process, the pit in your stomach just gets a little bit bigger, because you're like, ugh. And went through that, waited, had everybody, my close friends supporting me and just praying through it. And it came back benign as well, just a fibroadenoma. And so I was like, again, like I thought it was something was going on. And so after that one, we decided to do the BRCA test. And so I found out more about my family history, because I found out, asked more questions of my parents and family, because I knew we had a lot of cancer in our family. Didn't realize quite how much. And that came back negative. So I was like, oh, well, that's good. But with all the cancer in my family, I think they don't know the gene we have. We have a gene. We just don't know what it is. And then I was on vacation with my family in 2016 in Arizona, and I found a third lump. And they were all in the same breast, all 3 of them in different places. And so when I got in, they got me in right away, and went through the mammogram, ultrasound, biopsy. But the interesting thing with this one is when I went in and they did the biopsy, at each turn, like everybody was kind of like, wow, it's your third biopsy. Like it was like a big deal to them. It wasn't feeling like a big deal to me.
Mhm.
And then as the doctor, whoever he is, doing the biopsy and all that, he's like very encouraging to me. Like,
Mhm.
it's so good you do monthly self-exams, but like a little going on too much.
Yes.
And, for me, I have a pretty strong gut instinct for the
Mhm.
Lord. I'm like, that's a little too. So I was like, run. I don't like that they're being so great.
So nice, right?
It's so horrible because you don't want to think that way. But went through the awful, few days of waiting,
Right.
and then, got the diagnosis that nobody wants to hear, that it isn't benign. It's something. It's malignant, and we need to do something about it.
Right.
Um, and it was pretty awful.
Oh yeah.
It, in my family, we have over 30 family members that have had types of cancer from my grandmother's down.
Wow.
And so we've dealt with a lot of it. And I have a great legacy. My grandmother has survived 7 types of cancer. She's passed now. She didn't die of cancer.
Oh my gosh, wow.
Yeah. So we're strong and stubborn. But I do have several family members that have died of cancer. And so it's like, it's a hard word for our family.
Oh, yeah.
And my dad just the year prior in 2015 had cancer and went through a whole treatment process for that. So it was a super hard season.
Yeah, I can, especially I think after having gone through the 4 years prior, like wondering,
Yeah.
like, is this really all? And like you said, you had a weird feeling. Okay, so you got your diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
What was the type of cancer? What did they do next? Like, how quickly did it all come to pass?
The great thing is we caught it super early. It was like it was stage 0 basically.
Okay.
So that gave me a lot of options.
Mhm.
Um,
Good.
so they got me in right away, and it was one of those things. The doctors told me, and as they're giving me results, they're like, well, if it's something that's slow moving and we're not really worried about, they'll probably get you in 2 months. If
Mhm.
it's something that they're more worried about, they'll get you in a lot sooner, in a week or 2. Well, I got in 2 weeks.
Okay.
And so I'm like, okay, well, I know we caught this early, but
So
you're
fast.
getting, yeah. And
Mhm.
so they got me in, and they kind of gave me a couple different options, to either do the lumpectomy
Mhm.
and go on tamoxifen. And I'd already had a hysterectomy in 2010. And they'd taken my ovaries, so I don't make any estrogen. And so they basically put me into, full menopause at an early age, because
Mhm.
tamoxifen blocks all that. And that would be taking a pill for 10 years plus.
Right.
And then it would be MRI, breast MRIs, mammograms, ultrasounds every 6 months, more biopsies. And as as the doctor is explaining this to me, I'm like, that sounds like hell on the installment plan. I mean,
Exactly. Oh my
if
God.
you've ever just waiting for biopsy results are the worst 3 or 4 days, heaven forbid it's over a weekend, that you'll ever go through. And I'm like, I can't do that. Like, I'd already gone through and waited on biopsy results 3 times.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, so what's my other option?
Yep.
And it was a double mastectomy. And
Mhm.
with my family history, that was, I mean, a hard decision, but not a hard decision.
Yep.
It was definitely kind of a no-brainer, because it meant my risk goes down.
Yep.
Because in a lot of, studies and things like that, it's a repeat cancer diagnosis is
Mhm.
low, they say, but that's because it's in the same exact spot on your breast. It's
Right.
not, it was in the same breast. Like, I have too many girlfriends that I've met over the last couple of years that had lumpectomies,
Mhm.
because they're like, oh, the risk is really low of getting it again. But
Mhm.
then they got it in a different part of that same breast.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, so I knew pretty straight out that was going to be my journey, because we caught it so early. I Going into it, I wasn't sure, but I was hopeful that we wouldn't have to do any chemo or radiation,
And you didn't?
and we ended up not having to, which
Awesome.
was a
Awesome.
huge thing. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it was huge.
I can only imagine. So it went pretty quick for you.
It did.
Yeah.
It did. So March is when I found that lump. got in April 28th. I found out, and then had my full double mastectomy and reconstruction in June.
Yeah. Okay. My son is being very rude.
No, I'm not.
What do you need, son?
We all
I
have
need
kids.
to finish this, so you need to go. You can't do the dishes right now because it's too loud. What
Can I
did?
use my computer?
Yes. Okay. Oh my gosh. I love you. It's okay. It's okay.
Well, and my kiddos were when I had my double mastectomy, Taylor was 9 and
Yeah.
Cooper was 12. So
I know. It's crazy. They're young. And so how was that for them? I mean, do you feel like they were scared, or did they have, I mean, I always feel like whatever energy we bring around something, they're just going to absorb. So, what was it like for them? Or, were they scared? All the things.
yeah. Well, they had, I mean, literally 6 months prior, no less than that, 4 months prior, my dad had just finished his cancer treatment and, been down at Loma Linda for several months. And so they had kind of walked through this, but it was good because my dad's super positive like I am. It was like, this is not going to get us. This is a blip. Like, we're going to get through this and then life keeps going. And they had watched my dad go through that. And so that was actually super helpful.
Yeah.
And also I've been through some significant medical things through the years, and the kids have heard about it and walked through it, and it dropped me for a minute but never got me down.
Yep.
So I was really positive, really leaning into the Lord, tons of people praying. I wrote a blog just to kind of more than anything make communication easier on me,
Yep.
because when I'd been through past medical things, it was pretty exhausting just to have to
Update.
go over and recount all the crud. Like,
Yeah.
I don't, thoughts are things, and language is big. And so what you're thinking about and what you're focusing on gets big. And I didn't want to think about that stuff. I wanted to then just get to have conversations when I ran into people in town and get to talk about where I'm at now and how hopeful I am and moving forward. So I've been involved in our Relay for Life for cancer for many years. But I can tell you, it was really hard to be at that Relay for Life because it was in the beginning of May. So it was a week or two after I found out, and I knew I was heading to double mastectomy. And I mean, I just ugly Christ sobbed with sunglasses and hat on, when they're doing the survivor lap. And it was really, it was challenging, but it was great to have a ton of support with the kids. Because I had been really open about everything going on, and just kind of put it all out there.
Yep.
That meant all of my friends, or my kids' friends' parents knew what was going on. And so they were all great and super supportive and loving on my kids and doing fun things with them. And, we did do a lot of we kind of sucked the marrow out of life the month before my double mastectomy, because we knew I'm like, oh, I'm just going to be recovering, and it's a hard surgery. And so we did as many fun things and got out of town and just enjoyed and did the things that I was like, this is going to be hard for me to do in, a month. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then how did you have which type of reconstruction did you opt for?
Going into it, we didn't know if they were going to have to put in tissue expanders, which tissue expanders are difficult. They're awful, little hard things. And they every week they put fluid in to stretch, because there's no room under the muscle a lot of times. And so going into it, I didn't know if they were going to be able to put an implant in under the muscle or those. And it wasn't until I got out of surgery that I found out that my reconstructive surgeon did an awesome job. She was able to get a small implant in there. It made going into the surgery, it was supposed to be a 7-hour surgery, and it made it, I think, 10 and a half, something like that. So it was a lot longer. But even with that, God had his hand all throughout it. My anesthesiologist happened to be, my husband grew up with his wife, And so they had the phone numbers. And so he's texting my husband and letting him know, hey, everything's okay. It's just taking longer. This is what's going on. And so that was kind of a lifesaver to be able to keep them in the loop because everybody was super worried.
Oh, I can imagine. I can imagine. And so you were in the hospital for how many days?
Good question. Some of this is a little blurry because you're kind of out of it. I think 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
I feel like it was something like that.
Yeah.
And some of that stuff's challenging depending on what your recovery looks like and getting pain managed and that kind of stuff. But it was good to go home.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, and so you went home summertime, so that was probably kind of nice not to have so much, but it's probably hot too.
Yeah, Chico's super hot. It was over 100 degrees. But I was just inside air conditioning. I had lots of friends come over. My parents brought their favorite recliner to my house, and that's what I slept in every night.
Nice.
And friends would come over and watch movies with me, but it was hilarious because I'd watch the first little bit and then I'd fall asleep. And they'd stay, and I'd wake up at some point because all the pain medication makes you so groggy, and there was a lot to get used to with the drains and it's just it's a lot of pain. They say breast lifts are super painful. This is worse.
It's painful, huh? Oh, good to know, right? It's good to prepare myself. I'm not gonna lie.
It's painful. Stay ahead of the pain. Do not.
Don't think you're stronger, right? Just take.
Yep. I know one of my friends was like, "Just take the pill. Like, get over it. You're fine. Like, just take the pill. You're gonna get through this.
You'll get through this." Yeah. And then what? Like during the time that you were diagnosed, and then going into surgery, and then even recovery, like, were there things that you felt were super helpful, or like habits or thoughts, or like what kind of kept you positive? Because you are, like you said earlier, you're positive. Your dad was positive. Where do you think that comes from? Obviously, that plays a huge part, I believe, in how we navigate. But was there anything in particular you remember being like super important for you to do, or to have, or to think, or any of that?
Yeah. My faith in God, a huge part of it. In fact, Lauren Daigle had her first album, and it has a couple songs that are one's called "Oh Lord," and I can't tell you how many times that was loud as can be while I was in the shower.
I love it.
That was like my place, because with little kids, I didn't want them to see me like, it was okay for them to see me a mess, but I was like, that I was processing hard things, and all those thoughts are spinning in your head. I had to work really hard to just kind of keep those thoughts captive and not let my mind go there, and the what ifs and the why me and like that. Because none of those questions are really very productive, and you're not going to really ever have the answer. And so sometimes to stop that spinning in my head, I'm just like, I'm going to get in the shower, crank some worship music, and the Lord can take it, and just have it out and process things with him. And this is really hard, and I don't know how I'm going to get through this, and lay it all out there. I did write down several things I was grateful for every day, just as a kind of a practice that I do. And that's pivotal, just because it kind of like, when you're spinning or when life is crazy, kind of like gets you back, kind of recentered into what's important. I had a lot of great girlfriends, great mentors. I had tons of national sales directors, Top and Mary Kay, reach out to me with so much love, so much support. And I really, like, during that season, I felt like I was being carried, like literally being carried by people's prayers. And it wasn't logical, because I should have been fearful or scared or something like that. But I didn't ever really fear for my life, even though I was going through all that. I was kind of like, well, we're just going to get through this, and it's going to be okay. And,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And part of that was being so grateful that I caught it early, because that really gave me more options. And then also really advocating strongly for my own personal health, and not being afraid to ask the questions and say, well, Can we reschedule that? Can we move it sooner? What does that look like? Can we get my physical therapy scheduled right away so I'm not waiting for that? What stretches can I do? Oh, I'm going to see a lymphedema specialist. So, because you can get all kinds of swelling when they mess with your lymph nodes. And like, okay, what does it look like to see a lymphedema specialist and figure out, how to work with that ahead of time. So yeah, and I did have some goals going into it. I knew my son was in on the all-star team for Little League, and
Mm.
his first game was 2 weeks after my double mastectomy, and so I wanted to be able to be there. I'm like, I don't care if I'm still, on pain medication and not feeling good. If I can get in the car, somebody can drive me close, I can walk in. So I had that goal, and then I also wanted to go to a big, large Mary Kay event that was about 6 weeks after my surgery.
Right.
And that was really important to me because I knew for my mental state, I needed to have something to look forward to.
Yep.
And that helped because it made it so, okay, yep, I'm going to do those stretches after the surgery. I'm going to do, I'm going to do the hard things because
Yeah.
I know it'll benefit me.
Yeah. That's great. I love that you had those very tangible goals. And I think it probably helped you, yes, take the time to rest and do all the things, because that is something I tell you, like you can't do too much too fast, right? You have to listen. But I love that we have to be our best advocate, like you said, for our health. And I love that you're calling all the people, doing all the things, and it's good for us. And I do think the other part of that, catching it early, that I feel is important, I'm 40, is our health to recover well, right? Like going down, getting that surgery, and then being able to recover when you're younger. Obviously, that recovery is going to hopefully happen faster or more fully, which is good.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and I would be amiss if I didn't say, like, there were some super, super hard days, when, like, I'm having my husband wash my hair in the shower. Like, there's just humble, or friends coming over and cleaning our bathroom, and all of those humbling, hard moments. And it takes you to the brink when you're going through something that intense.
Mhm.
You're always your best self, and you just kind of have a lot of grace
Mhm.
because you're doing the best you can with what you have in front of you. Um,
Yeah.
my best secret, though, is I found out that even like at Supercuts or somewhere like that, if you go in, they will wash and blow dry your hair. And so I did do that every week because then I felt like I wasn't, I had naturally curly hair. And so it would have just been a big fro of, so it was nice to like go get my hair like blow dried and flat ironed, once a week. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh,
The right
okay.
way. Like your
Yeah.
husband's trying to
Yes.
help, but men, they're
Yeah.
not going to be able to do it the way we can do it. Plus,
Yeah.
there's something about just, it feels so good to have somebody else do your hair. Like
Yeah,
that'd be
and after that, after double mastectomy, you can't raise your hands up. Like
right.
I could barely you touch your ears like at the beginning. So you're not doing your hair and you're not doing a lot. So having somebody do that and like, okay, my like worst case scenario, at least my hair looks good. So
And that makes a big difference. It really does. It really does. Yeah. So is there anything like important that you feel like, oh my gosh, I wish somebody had told me this either before surgery or right after, like any of those like hindsight moments where you're like, oh, good Lord, people should have told me this.
yeah, I did do quite a bit of research going in because I'm like, I'm gonna have drains and I'm gonna like, how do you keep those so they're not just like hanging and I'm not gonna be wearing like normal clothes? And so I did, like, I bought lots of button up shirts and like, romper things that were very stretchy and easy to get into. So I didn't have to mess with that. And so it was nice to have some options that I felt cute in.
Yes.
I got a big piece of like Velcro, I guess it is, but it's a wide one that I wrapped around my chest below my bosom. And then I used big safety pins, and so I could hook the drains there, and so they didn't flop around and like in your way.
Yeah.
Like things like that I never would have thought about, but I'm so glad that I heard about that and was like,
Uh-huh.
yes, please, like that's awesome. Um, I got a couple new lightweight robes They do have some that literally have pockets for your drains and things like that. But I was like, I'm only going to have the drains for a little bit. I don't want to spend all the money on something like that. So I just bought a couple lightweight roads, like just softy ones. Um,
Mm-hmm.
one of my Mary Kay clients, she came by to pick up something, and it must have been like a week or two, probably a week after my double mastectomy, but she's a good client. And I told my husband, like, hey, go grab this, put it out in my basket, all good. And she heard what was going on. And then she left and went and got like the softest blanket that wasn't too heavy, but lightweight. And it was like, oh, so have a soft, like cozy, awesome blanket that you want to cuddle with, because
I love
sometimes with everything you get like hot and cold and
it.
so that was super helpful. Let me think what
Making a
else.
shopping list right now.
Yeah, seriously. Get your hair colored right beforehand so you're good to go and you don't have, any roots or anything like that. Just some of those self-care things that you don't think about because your mind's spinning with all the stress of it. But it's kind of fun to have those fun things. Like I went and got a pedicure and got my nails done, gels, so they would last for a while, right before my surgery. And so it was nice to have some of those things
Right.
the week before, because as
Mhm.
the days get closer to that big surgery, you just get stressy and funky.
Mm.
The other thing I did, and I actually have it here, it's a little well loved, but I think it was the night before my surgery, we had a ton of close friends and family over, and I had a pillowcase, and let's see if I can get this in the
Oh,
frame. So they all
wow.
wrote
Here,
different things on here.
wait, I'm going to try to make you bigger. Let's see. Let's put you. I think I can do that. There we go. Okay, show
Okay.
it.
So all kinds of notes
Oh,
on the
wow.
pillowcase, verses. This is a quote from St. Patrick: Christ with me, Christ before me, Christ behind me,
Oh,
Christ in me, Christ beneath me, Christ above me, Christ on my right, Christ on my left, Christ when I lay down, Christ when I sit down, Christ when I arise. And so, some of them wrote lots of things, and some simple things.
mhm.
Somebody wrote, you is strong, you is brave, you is tough, you is loved by us.
Oh.
Um, and so that was my pillowcase that I just had a little pillow in, and it went to the hospital with me.
Oh,
And I lay down and I recovered on it.
oh,
It was so great. They all prayed over me that night, but that was probably having the pillowcase with all of those words was super pivotal, because when you just get sad and you get down and you have those days,
yeah,
more of those days in this season than you ever have in your life.
yeah.
It was huge to have that.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then having like all the snacks that I wanted, and I didn't care if it
So,
was like I just want barbecue chips. Like I need barbecue chips. Like get all the things. I want a lemon tart for breakfast, and you get a lemon tart for breakfast because you're going through crud.
right,
Um, so
right. Whatever you want, you get, right? Yes, I love that.
yeah,
That's so good. I think.
and be okay with that,
Mhm.
because especially as a mama, we do that. And if our kids were going through that, we're like, what would make you feel better right now?
Yeah,
Okay,
anything,
let's do
whatever it
this.
is, I will go get it. That's so
Yeah.
good. And I think too, because that's one of the things that I've been aware of, and even talking to my therapist, my psychologist about, is I'm not going to be able to do, like, I work out 6 days a week and run and all the things, yoga, la la, and that really, I believe in it. I've noticed when I don't do it, it's going to put me in a funk. So just being able to find ways to stay
Mhm.
on the up when you
Yep.
can't do all the things that you're habitually doing, that bring
Yeah.
you joy and make you feel strong. So,
Yeah, I was working out, 3 or 4 days a week before, but I did stop probably a month before my surgery because I was like, this is not. I mean, like I'm just gonna literally lose all of the muscle in the 6 weeks of recovery. And I mean, they say 6 weeks of recovery, and there's some milestones that you're like, okay, I'm catching a groove.
feel.
I mean, it takes a long time to get through it and get over it. It was, I mean, It's not one of those things that you're like, okay, I'm fine. You just get fatigued a lot easier. And so you have to choose what you can do. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to, my son's little league game. I'm
Mm,
resting all day so I can do that.
exactly.
Or I'm gonna go to my big Mary Kay event, and that's a flight. Well, I tolerated all that really well, but what I didn't take into account is all the hugs. Like people would want to come up to me and
Mm,
hug me. Well,
and that
after the
hurts.
first couple hours on the first day, I was done. My whole body ached because it was just that much movement of your arms.
Yeah.
So you have to give yourself lots of grace and be okay. Like, okay, you know what? My workout is me stretching, and it's going like this and putting my arm up and then going like this and arm up and going like this. And I did that 10 times, and that's really good, Veronica. I'm okay with that.
Yep.
So it's lots of grace and just kind of going, okay, there's
Mhm.
new mercies tomorrow morning. We'll
Yep.
start again then.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, my last question, and then anything you want to add before we close out, is just any lessons. Like looking back now, you're on the other side of it. You're obviously healed, recovered. But what I love is that when we can look back on the very difficult things and be like, oh man, like I'm actually glad I went through that and why. So, what would you say are one nugget or a couple nuggets that you gleaned from that difficult thing?
Yeah. So many. Um, you are now a part of a sisterhood that nobody wants to be a part of. And
Sorry.
it's just a fact. But there's this beautiful thing that happens. We have a large group that does a gala benefit here in our area every couple of years. And that's called Celebration. And the neat thing about getting connected with some of those women is you just get to have conversations that you can't have with anybody else because they just don't know. And so really neat to not only connect with those women, but also be able to pour into them. And some of them were ahead of me on the journey, and they had cancer 2 years prior to me, or some of them were in the midst of it and going through much more difficult journeys than I was. I was very grateful that my journey was the double mastectomy. It was hard. The recovery was hard. And then I had 3 reconstructive surgeries because, after double mastectomy, they remove everything. So things don't look normal. I mean, my doctor told me one thing. She's like, I will make it so you look good in clothes. But there's, bathing suits and the rest of our life that we'd like to look good in and feel good in looking in the mirror when we're brushing our teeth and things like that. And so it was quite a journey.
Mhm.
And some of it more difficult than I could have imagined.
Mhm.
But you look at it on the other side, you're like, I went through that. I
Mhm.
didn't crumble. I mean, we made it.
Mhm.
And so you feel really good, like a sense of God and me got through this together.
Mhm.
So that's big.
That's good.
Plus, you have an opportunity because you've been through something. Anytime you go through something hard, you have this amazing opportunity to then you got to go through that, and now you get to pass that on to others.
Mhm.
And so sharing the benefit of do your monthly self exams and literally teaching women how to do them, because most of us don't know. There's so much misinformation out there on how to do them.
Mhm.
Doing them properly, what that looks like, and the power that you hold as advocating for yourself and taking care of yourself in a proper way in your health and putting it as a priority.
Mhm.
Because there's lots of women who don't go get their mammograms because they can say all the reasons. I was busy, I was this, I was this. It all comes down to they're scared
Yep.
and don't want to do something hard. It's just like we don't like to go to the dentist because
Right.
it doesn't feel good. But you've got to.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm super grateful to be 4.5 years out.
Mhm.
It's been a couple years since my last surgery. And my scars, I think 14 scars that came from all of that,
Mhm.
some a lot bigger than others. But now I can wear a triangle top bikini, and when I look in the mirror, I don't see my scars first.
Oh wow.
And I didn't think I'd ever be that way. I didn't think I'd ever not be able to focus on them because they're significant. They just are.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they do fade. And as those scars fade, you gain more perspective. Um, and and they don't hurt anymore. And the things that you're like, why does that part near my rib just always ache? I don't understand. Then all of a sudden you realize, oh, it finally doesn't. And some of those, it took a year or two for that to happen, but you're like, okay, it finally won't hurt. It finally won't be uncomfortable. Um, and so it is good to be on this side of things and try to walk through it with other people because it's something that you don't have to go through alone. You've got this amazing sisterhood around you, especially with us Mary Kay girlfriends.
Right. It's like
We get
double.
we get a little extra love, and
Right.
I mean, I had women that I didn't really know, but my mentor told her what's going on, and I mean, 20 minutes later, I get a call from another national sales director in like Ohio, and you're like, how do you know? You don't know me, but she's like, I just want to let you know I'm here from you, whatever you. And I had her personal number, and I could text her. I'm like, I'm freaking out about this,
Right.
and you have people that you can talk to
Mm-hmm.
that are mindful that your words have power and mindful how to build you up, be authentic, and also send you in the positive direction. And that's super helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more. I feel like you've got to be planted in those right communities and the sisterhood, and you've got to just talk about it. And so I know one of the things, like you had mentioned, people just don't go in for the mammograms, and it's really a way of prolonging or putting off the unknown, maybe. Um, and I think part of my um, habits is just to be so positive and to push forward. But I love this because it's making me think about the things that I haven't thought about yet. And so I've got a bunch of things to like think about and buy now. I'm like, oh, I have time to buy it. So
Yes,
uh,
you do.
but
Definitely.
I just so appreciate you. And I love knowing that even if there's more questions I want to ask, they're like
Oh,
way too
totally.
personal to ask right now. Like I know I can call you and be like, Veronica, what the heck, you know?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but I appreciate you. And I love that we have like those double connections now. And I'm sorry I didn't know you better when you were going through all that. So I could have been any type of support to you, but I know you didn't expect that, obviously. But thank you so much for your time today. You are awesome,
You
friend.
bet.
So
It's one of those things, like it's been super rewarding. I can tell you probably once a month or every other month at the furthest, someone reaches out to me and messages me, whether they're like, I just found a lump, what do I do?
mm,
My mom just got diagnosed. Can you meet with us? And
yeah.
it's like so I have so much joy and peace and hope in my heart when I get to walk through that because um, some people made things easy, but there wasn't a lot of people, especially a lot of people young, that had gone through this.
Mhm.
Most of the people that told me about their breast cancer, they were 60 or something like that.
Right.
And so it's a different journey. It just is. When you have little kids at home, when you are super active and you're doing all the things and you want all of that quality of life, it's a little bit different conversation than my aunt that was 70 something. She was so loving and so wonderful, and I was so grateful, but it's just different. And so it's really neat to be able to speak to that just from the you know going through it all under 40 um, crew that none of us want to be a part of. But
Right, right. But you know what? It's so cool that you have even more time on this earth to be to be both an advocate for the examinations, because I've never even really done one. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like mine was a mammogram, but who knows? Maybe, I mean, maybe I would have found it that way had I been doing that. So
well, and you are so not alone. I'm not exaggerating. Probably 99% of the women I talk to, their response is, "Oh yeah, I need to do that. Oh yeah, like wait, how do you do that? Like
yeah,
you have to only do it on the first day of your period or the this or the that." I'm like, it. don't get all like complicated. Just pick a day of the month and do it, because
Right.
that's going to be better than not doing it.
At all.
Like there's a
Exactly.
campaign called Feel It on the First that I'm a fan of, because it's something easy to remember. Like on the first of the month, just do it. It doesn't matter if it doesn't correlate with your cycle. The key part is getting to know your body
Right.
and know that, huh, that's different than what was there last month.
Yeah.
And that's how you figure things out.
Yeah.
There's no guilt or shame in not doing it, but there's a opportunity to go, okay, in the future, yeah, that's important, and we can empower each other by doing those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's perfect. Yeah. Okay. This girl says there's a comment. I didn't know you could even test at 35.
Yeah,
So yeah, I thought it was 40. The earlier, the better.
depends on family history and some of those other things, but
Right.
that's the thing. Ask the questions and
Right.
push for it, because you just never know, and you got to follow that gut instinct.
Right.
If for whatever reason you're thinking, I think I need to get a mammogram, I think this is super important,
Hmm.
then ask those questions. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
I love that.
don't second guess things. And especially for mamas, I have a girlfriend who unfortunately is no longer with us. She had found a lump and she was just nursing her new baby, and they kind of, the doctors and whatnot, kind of dismissed it as being mastitis or this or that.
Mm.
And she didn't realize and didn't know. And by the time she finished nursing, it was too big, and her story didn't end great. So advocate for yourself, push for it.
Mm.
Who cares if they think you're rude and annoying and you're bothering them at the doctor's office? That's
Right.
their job, to take care of your health and get you in.
Right.
And so I always, whenever I found a lump, your first call is your OBGYN. And typically they always got me in, if not that day, the next day.
Mhm.
And so if they're not getting you right away, push for it. Like, hey, let's figure this out, because some things are slow moving and it's no big deal, and some things are fast moving and you just have no idea. And so
Yeah.
it's so much better to
Mhm.
get it in the light and know what it is. I'll use a fun example from literally last night. We have a little Catan de Tulier who always sleeps in a crate in my daughter's room, and my daughter happened to fall asleep in the front room, and so Luna didn't go into her crate. Well, about 2 in the morning, I heard just like a little noise, and I'm like, "What is that? Oh, maybe that's Luna. I don't know." And so I got up in the dark and like, "Luna, is that you?" Well, she didn't come out from under my bed, and then 5 minutes later, I heard the noise again, and but I had figured out it wasn't Luna. It couldn't be. So then I'm like, freaking out. Is it a mouse? Is it a critter? Like, what
What
is
is
this? Like,
it?
all this, and thoughts are running wild and this and that. And so then I got my light on my cell phone and went to under my bed where I thought what the sound was. Well, I have a wicker basket that has some swimsuit cover ups and things like that. Well, she got herself in there under the
Oh,
bed and couldn't really get out. And so I was just hearing the noise. But I was all freaked out. But really, it was just Luna. It was no big deal. Once I got the light on it, once I knew what it was, then you could deal with it.
yep.
So it's always better. Like all of us have realized at some point in our life, the not knowing was worse than the knowing. Once
Mhm.
you know what you're dealing with, then you can feel really empowered
Yep.
and kind of move forward in that. So we're
Absolutely.
strong, amazing women. God created us unique and powerful. And so remember who you are.
Yes. Well, that was a perfect way to close our time. So thank you, Veronica, and thank you guys for tuning in live. We appreciate you. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye.
I love it.